Spectre Vision Radio.
The first time I heard it, I was paralyzed with fear. Since I'd been back in that house, I'd been asleep every night by 10 p.m., but that night was different, and I didn't climb into bed until almost midnight. I was on the precipice of falling asleep when it happened. I heard the faint sound of footsteps. They were light, but unmistakable, and I lay there frozen in fear as they crossed by my bedroom door. I listened as they gently descended the stairs until they were too distant for me to hear. Someone was in the house with me. I mustered up every ounce of courage I had and grabbed the baseball bat from under my bed. Silently as I could, I skulked through the place, bat raised, ready to crash it down onto whoever was prowling around in the dark. But there was no one there. I triple-checked every room, every lock, every window. Nothing. I began to wonder if it had just been a case of the dream world invading the real one. If a sound that really existed only in the half-slumbering movie theater of my mind had erroneously made its way into the part of my brain that was still awake. But it happened again the next night, and the night after that. And so on, and so on. And each time, I couldn't find anything in the house. I was utterly terrified. But that is before I realized what it was. My brother Walter and I were born as close as is possible without being twins. In fact, people often confused us for twins throughout our entire childhoods. To me, we seemed more like a pair than anything else in the world that comes in twos. And the truth is, I couldn't really distinguish my life from his. That's not to say that we were the same, far from it. It was as if Walter had inherited all the good stuff on offer from the combo of our parents. He was confident, talented, good with people. I possessed only the tiniest doses of the things that made him so compelling. So the fact that I looked up to Walter had nothing to do with him being slightly older than me. It was because he was basically a better version of what I was. But that didn't matter. What really mattered was that we lived our lives together, inseparable. So when Walter died, I just stopped really existing. In my eyes, we were two halves, although uneven, that really made up one whole. Without him, I was reduced to only being myself, and it made me feel like nothing mattered. Walter had been gone almost a year that morning I went to visit Dad in the nursing home. They'd already sent a final warning letter, saying that if I didn't settle his bill, he'd be evicted. The way for me to get the money was clear. Sell the house. The one I was now staying in, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Saying goodbye to that place, the house Walter and I had grown up in, felt like saying goodbye to him forever. And I wasn't ready. Couldn't see how I'd ever be ready to do that. Dad seemed pretty with it that day. It was always hard to predict how much his mind would wander. We had a fairly normal conversation, but then something shifted in his eyes, and his answers became scattered and less coherent. I found myself using it as an opportunity to tell him, just so I could tell someone about what I was experiencing. "I'm hearing footsteps in the night," I said, running past my old room, down the stairs and into the den. To my surprise, Dad laughed. "Your brother and that damn TV show he's obsessed with," he said, smiling. "He thinks we don't know he sneaks out of bed to watch it every night." A memory resurfaced from the depths of my mind, Walter sneaking out of his room, accidentally waking me up as he did so, me tailing him down the stairs to the den, where he turned on the TV, keeping the volume low, and how I'd bailed after 5 minutes, too scared by the creepy show he took such glee in secretly watching. He always was the strong-willed one, Dad said, chuckling. But I wasn't really listening anymore. My mind was buzzing with a monumental realization. Walter is there. In that house. I refocused, stared back at Dad again. But his eyes had glazed over in that way that meant he wasn't really in the room with me anymore. So I kissed him on the forehead and rushed out of the nursing home as fast as I could, back to the house. The rest of the day it felt like the hands on my watch were moving through concrete, like every second was taking an hour. But finally, the sun set. I lay on my bed and waited for the footsteps. Sure enough, just before midnight, they came. I ran after them, calling my brother's name, even though I couldn't see him. I followed the footsteps down the stairs and into the den, right up to where the TV was. But then, nothing. Silence aside from the thumping of my heart and the heaving of my anticipating breath. I waited and waited, but nothing came. "If you're here," I said, speaking into the quiet of the night, "please, let me know." I jolted back as a sound like a small explosion ripped through the air. I stood there, stupefied and amazed, as I realized the TV screen had shattered before my eyes. I became delirious with excitement, standing there staring at the shards of broken glass. Walter really is here. And he wants to talk to me. I had no idea what to expect after the incident with the TV. I expected something, yet nothing came. I waited a couple days, but there were no more footsteps, no things inexplicably smashing. So I frantically searched every corner of the internet until I found someone who'd been widely recommended by people saying she'd successfully put them in contact with the dead. A woman who went by the name Kalma, who called herself a seer. I stared at a photograph of her on her website. A small, frail-looking woman with a stern face. Reading her bio, I could tell she took herself very earnestly, and that's exactly what I wanted. No grifters looking to get a quick buck out of someone in mourning. I needed someone who would take what was happening to me seriously. I called the number. Kalma answered it in a voice that contained only the tiniest hint that English wasn't her first language. She initially told me she wasn't available for a week, but I told her I'd pay triple her usual rate, and she agreed to drive over to the house that same night. Before we hung up, she told me that I needed to do a couple of things to prepare for her arrival. First, she told me I had to gather all the items of significance to Walter, anything that was special to him, or that he'd given me, and put them all in one place. Secondly, she told me I needed to buy plastic sheets and cover the floor of the room I wanted her to perform her services in. I didn't ask why. I just told her I'd do whatever she said, if it meant it worked. Buzzing with too much anticipation, I couldn't force myself into any small talk when she arrived, and I ushered her into the den and demanded we start right away. She had a backpack on and was carrying some kind of container with her. By the way she was lugging it, it looked heavy. Our feet caused the plastic sheets to make crinkling noises as we entered the den and sat opposite each other at the table, on top of which I had laid all the items of significance to Walter she'd told me to gather. She looked through all the items carefully, one by one. It was odd, seeing this stranger quietly analyze the funny little clay figurine Walter had made in art class and given to me for my 10th birthday. The photograph of us playing soccer in Grandma's backyard, her watching on smiling for the last time before she passed away shortly after. Kalma muttered to herself under her breath and then gave me a nod which I took to mean everything was in order. She then retrieved a wad of thick, blank pieces of paper from her backpack and placed it in front of her, before heaving the container she'd brought with her onto the table and prizing it open. It was full of some black viscous liquid that looked like paint. She dipped her hand in the liquid and then held it above the paper. She then flicked her fingers, causing the paint to scatter across the white page. I looked down at what effect the action had made, and my eyes widened immediately. It was messy, but unmistakable. A strange, distorted face of incorrect proportions. But it resembled Walter somehow. And I was sure it wasn't just because I wanted it to. "Those who've passed over to the other side," Kalma said, now looking across the table at me. "They no longer appear the way they did. Their new form can be frightening to us." I nodded. Truth was, I didn't care. Whatever shape he took, I just wanted to see Walter again. "I'm telling you now, so you know you don't have to be afraid," she added. She pushed the paint-flecked paper towards me. "Stare at it," she said. "Stare into it." I cast my eyes down at the paper, tried to look at it more intently than I'd ever looked at anything. I wasn't sure what was meant to happen. But then, there was a flash of something. An explosion of an image before my eyes, gone as quickly as it came. It was Walter, but changed, like I could sense him somehow. But what I was seeing was something else. It was him, yet not quite. "You saw it," Kalma said. I nodded, still staring down at the odd face depicted in the paint. Another flash. Again, this sense of Walter, but I jerked back at what I saw. The outline of something that looked like it was somewhere between man and beast. "I told you," Kalma said, seeing my reaction. "The way those who have crossed over now appear can sometimes be frightening." I pulled myself together and stared down at the paper once more. We waited in silence, but this time nothing happened. "He's gone," Kalma said. "For now." "Let's go again," I replied. "Let's get him back." "I'm afraid it doesn't work like that," she said, shaking her head. "We've opened the channel of communication. How your brother chooses to manifest his contact with you beyond this point, I can't say." I asked her what I was meant to do. "You wait," she replied. "He will speak to you. It could come in any form, so be vigilant." I pushed her on it once more, but she said that was all she could do for me and gathered her things. But when I was seeing her out, when I had the front door open and she was literally stepping through its threshold, she turned her head so she was peering over her shoulder, staring curiously back into the house. "What is it?" I asked. "Nothing," she said softly. "Sometimes I forget that the people we wish to contact may have been dark presences in life as well as in death." I asked her what the hell that meant. Was she saying Walter was bad? Everyone loved him. He never so much as raised his voice at anyone. He wouldn't have hurt a fly. "My apologies," Kalma said. "My vision is not an exact science. I'm sure you understand." I didn't, but I didn't care. All I wanted was for her to leave so I could wait for Walter to contact me again. I waited for days. I didn't leave the house. I thought of nothing else. If Walter was trying to contact me, I couldn't tell. In desperation, I found myself ordering black paint and thick paper, as close to what Kalma had used as I could guess. I could have gone out to a store and got them quicker, but I didn't dare leave the house in case I missed something. I checked the delivery's progress every few seconds for the entire 24 hours it took to arrive. As soon as it did, I hustled it over to the table and tried to mimic what Kalma had done. I dipped my fingers into the paint and flicked them towards the paper. I stared down at what I'd created. It looked like nothing. Dark streaks that looked only like nonsense, no matter how hard I stared at them. I grabbed the page and threw it aside. "Try it again," I told myself. I repeated the action. The result was the same. I tried again, and again, and again. I don't know how many times I did it, but finally, I found myself staring down at a spattered but unequivocal message. "Burn all my things." Walter was communicating again. He was still here. I kept staring at the words. I didn't want to do what they said, but I told myself to get over it, that this was the tiniest price to pay for the ultimate prize, I grabbed the trash can from the kitchen, took it out to the backyard, and started a fire in it. I tossed in everything that was Walter's, but also anything he'd given me, all items of sentimental value, everything I'd piled up on the table for Kalma's visit, and then some. I cried as I threw it all into the flames, but the fact I was speaking to Walter again meant I didn't quite know if they were tears of sadness or of joy. Once all that was left was ash, I made my way back into the house and flicked more black paint at a fresh page. This time, a new message appeared immediately. Do this in blood. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and sliced open the tips of my fingers. With the blood already oozing from the wounds, I ran back into the den and strummed my fingers down onto another page. Another message appeared. Don't eat, don't sleep 3 days. Then what happens? I asked, unsure if he could hear me. I flicked more blood, and Walter replied, I come back, said the message, painted in my blood. Those 3 days I waited for Walter were hard to say the least. The strange situation I found myself in got stranger still as the lack of sleep and food took hold. I couldn't tell anymore what was a hallucination and what might be part of the veil between worlds thinning. Sometimes it was as if the house would disintegrate around me and be replaced by something else altogether, a dark space where the walls looked like they were made out of flesh, and within it, opposite me, was a presence, a silhouette of a figure, dimensions off, the same as I'd seen in the marks Kalma had made with paint, the same as the one that had flashed through my mind. I stared back at that figure, squinting through the dark. Walter? I said. Is that really you? Though he was obscured by shadow, I could see that he nodded his head. Speak to me, brother, I cried. Let me hear your voice. The reply came very faint, no more than a whisper. Brother. I tried to move towards him, but the second I did, I was back staring up at the ceiling, still laying on the couch in the den. I'd endured 3 days of no sleep or food. I felt unsteady on my feet, every inch of my body trembling. But the mad, nervous energy of bringing Walter back to me kept me going. It was time for the next message. I reopened the wounds on my fingers and flecked a page with my blood. Path for me, it said. I spent a while asking out loud what that meant and trying to get more messages to appear, but no further explanation materialized. Not wanting to waste any more time, I decided to interpret it best I could. I grabbed every lamp in the house and lit a whole bunch of candles, and made a path from what had been Walter's bedroom, down the stairs, and all the way to the TV, the route his footsteps had taken, the thing that had started all this. I waited by the TV for what seemed like forever, my body pleading with me for rest and nourishment, but I ignored it. I waited, and doubt started to creep in. What was I hoping would happen, exactly? That maybe Walter, in whatever shape he now was, would climb out of the TV? Maybe. But with the screen smashed, I was able to see inside the TV. My hopes faded. There was nothing of mystery in there, nothing otherworldly, no portal to the other side, just a mess of electrical components and wires. I waited until my body could take no more, and eventually dragged myself up to my room. I collapsed onto the mattress, feeling the colossal weight of defeat pressing down on me. I needed sleep, felt myself slipping into unconsciousness. But then, breaking the silence of that house, I heard Walter's bedroom door open. The footsteps. They were back. I shot out of bed and followed them. All the candles blew out as the footsteps ran by. Every bulb exploded in each lamp. This is it, I thought. It's really happening. Walter is coming back." I chased after them, down the stairs and into the den. But no one was in there. I span around on the spot. What was it I wasn't seeing? It was the sound that came first. Something like bubbling. I followed it over to the table and saw that the container of black paint was beginning to shake, the thick liquid churning and curdling inside it. The container crashed to the floor, and the liquid oozed out, moving as if it had a mind of its own. A form began to grow out of it, molding itself out of the black. I watched in awe as it grew until it was the same height as me. With it now standing upright, the paint slid off it, revealing what was beneath. "Walter," I said. Kalma had warned me about the frightening shape those who'd crossed to the other side might take. But now that it was really here with me, I didn't sense in any way that what I was looking at was my brother. "You aren't really Walter, are you?" I asked. The thing shook its head. "No, I'm afraid I'm not," it replied. I tried to understand what I was looking at, this thing that looked mostly human, but almost like a beast at the same time. "I spent time with Walter, in the place where I come from," it said. "I looked inside him, saw what he knew. I didn't care about what it was, where it had come from. I cared only about my brother." "Where is he?" I demanded. "Where is Walter?" "Walter isn't coming," it said flatly. "Why not?" I hissed. The thing tilted its head as it looked at me with as close to an expression of pity as I guessed that face was capable of. "Because he never wants to see you again," it said. It was like I could feel something inside me burst, a bubble of denial. One I'd inflated to act as a kind of dome to shield off the truth of what had happened. Staring back at that thing, I knew it was telling the truth, that it had seen everything Walter had known, and it had seen what had happened between us. It had seen how jealous I'd been of any other relationships in Walter's life, friends, romantic partners, even colleagues, how I'd made every one of those difficult for him, how I'd inserted myself into every inch of his life. It had seen how tired Walter had grown of me, how he'd begun to avoid me, to distance himself from me. It had seen how, after me failing to get the message, Walter had told me I'd become a burden, that I was holding him back, that my attachment to him wasn't normal. It had seen how Walter had told me he was moving away to start anew, without me, and how I'd snapped, how a red mist had clouded my mind, and how I'd killed him before I could even think about what the hell I was doing. I fell to my knees and sobbed, wailed. The thing dropped onto its knees too, and embraced me. "I'm not Walter, but you still need a big brother," it said, stroking my hair tenderly. "Someone to always be there for you, to look out for you." Too tired to do anything else, I let it cradle me there, fell into the warmth of its touch. "I can be that," it said soothingly. "The reason I came here is because I want to be that." It embraced me tighter, moved its lips to my ear, so close they were almost touching. "All you have to do is ask me in." I'm out on the sea. I hoist the first bag. It's heavy. So heavy that when I tip it overboard, it makes a popping sound as it breaks through the water. I watch it, but after only a brief moment, it begins to sink, just like it should. I grab the second bag, this one a little smaller and lighter, and do the same. Pretty soon that's gone too, disappearing down into the depths, never to be seen again. My new big brother is very different to how Walter was. He never gets bored of me, never stops listening, never thinks I need too much attention, and he'll never betray me, never leave. I don't much like the things I have to do to keep him fed, as he puts it, but I'd already proved I could do it with what happened to Walter, and I must admit it gets easier every time. And my new big brother is so encouraging while I'm doing it, so kind. All that washes through my mind as I navigate back to shore. If anyone were to see me in this moment, they'd think I was alone. How wrong they'd be.